Good evening, everyone. It's 11 p.m., and this is Nightly Muse with Jason Tweed, and I'm Jason Tweed. We have a special show tonight. We're going to do a live call-in show, and we have our phone lines hooked up and our text hooked up, and of course, we always have uh, the chat session. So feel free to also use the chat box. And I'm our topic for today is that today is World Teachers Day. It's a day that is becoming internationally recognized as the day to celebrate those educators around the world. Before we begin with that, I want to give you a bit of an update. This is our 9th episode. In this, we are in the second week. We're doing 5 episodes a week, and it's important that we end up with 100 subscribers by the end of the first month, and I'll tell you why. If we get 100 subscribers, then we can have a nice vanity URL such as youtube.com/nightlymuse, and you'll be able to bookmark it and share it much easier than the contrived code URLs that I have to post every night. So we'll have a permanent link, and you can come back to watch the most recent episode, or you can also come back to watch the live show at the exact same link every night. To do that, we have to get 100 subscribers to the channel, as well as have 30 days of history. So we are about 2 weeks in, about halfway there, but we're well short of 100 subscribers. I don't have the current number, but when I checked yesterday, we were at 11 subscribers. Lots of people are watching. It's not that we've had over 800 hours of the show have been watched, mostly on replays, but we're very excited to have more watchers to the live show, and then we invite you to watch the replays every night, or every day from the previous night. But please subscribe to get notified when a new show comes out, and also you'll get notified when we do the replays, which are being uploaded to YouTube just minutes after each show is complete. So let's talk about teachers. I'm going to start us off, but I do encourage you to text or call. Our phone numbers are in the chat. It's area code 215-253-3737. And barring technical difficulties, we'll put you on the air, and you'll be able to tell us about your favorite teacher and what made them special to you. Or send me a text at 570-486-9939. And once again, share a quick note that tells us what you liked about one of your favorite teachers and that was an inspiration to you. Well, I had a lot of school. 16 years if you include college, and from kindergarten through high school. And there were lots of teachers during that time that made an impact on me. However, when I think back through all the teachers that I've had, the ones that really stick out in my memory had 3 common characteristics. Characteristic number 1 is they had compassion. I don't think you can be a teacher without caring for other people. Um, Even brilliant educators, scientists and professors and lecturers, um, they have to care about the students to be able to get up and do it day after day. And that's regardless of whether your students are, 23 5-year olds, um, or 5 23-year olds, or 250 23-year olds. I had one class in college. I was in a movie theater. It was a film appreciation, and there were 250 uh, people in that classroom. And even in that much, um, in that large of a classroom or large of a class, our teacher gave a remarkable amount of one-on-one time. He was very knowledgeable, but also uh, very willing to help out his students, even though the demands in his time were intense. Compassion is definitely one. Second is, I think you have to have a passion for your knowledge. Great teachers aren't great because they enjoy it or because they are good with people, or good with kids, or know their subject matter. You have to want to learn to teach. And I think that's particularly true in 12th grade and below, especially in elementary school. Our teachers often get a bad rap, I think. I think that you talk to, you know, 8-year olds all day long, and you start talking like an 8-year old. And that creates this perception, I think, that some of the teachers aren't really intelligent because they use very simple words and simple language. But that's not true. The reality is that the best teachers are the ones that really understand how to connect and how to relate to a particular age group, to a particular set of kids, or to within a particular subject area. They really are craftspeople and artists, in the sense that they have to learn on the job how to connect with people, and at the same time participate in continuing ed, because the the science of education is constantly evolving. And then the last one, and this is something that may surprise some of you, I think you have to have a great sense of humor. Um, I think back of all of the teachers that click with me to this day, and all of them were funny. I remember Mr. Milliken, our 10th grade English teacher, who would, tell us stories, and he'd break from the monotony that was Silas Marner or Shakespeare, because some of us weren't connecting, and I was one of those, unfortunately, at that time. But I did connect to him because he would tell stories. He would talk about his youth. He probably told a few that would have been considered inappropriate by today's standards, but those stuck in my head for decades. My radio professor was really a very dry man, but at the same time, he was hilarious in his own way. He had a very wry sense of humor, a little bit of a stoicism about him, but a brilliant smile, Dr. Gary Christensen. And Doxy was one of these guys that took his role as a radio and television and journalism teacher very seriously, but at the same time, he recognized that a big chunk of the students in his classes were there just to have fun. I remember one particular story. I asked Doxy to let me drop a class. Feeling a little bit overwhelmed, and he knew how to call my bluff. So I went in and asked him to sign a drop slip. He said, "Sure, no problem. I'll sign it. I just have a couple of questions for you. Are you getting enough sleep?" And I said, "Well, yeah, Doc. I try to get 6 or 7, 8 hours a night. You know, keep my brain healthy." I says, "Good. Are you getting enough to eat?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm trying to get 3 squares a day, and you know, take care of myself." And he says, "Well, by my calculations, 8 hours of sleep and 2 hours a day in the cafeteria, that's 10 extra hours a day. That's plenty of time to get the work done in this class. I'd recommend that you stop eating and sleeping and get back to class. Now get out of my office." And he refused to sign. I made it through that semester, and I persevered. I took a heavier load, but it was great because he called my bluff. He knew that it wasn't about how tired I was or burnt or anything else. It was that I wasn't very good at time management. And he said, "Sleeping and eating is optional. You're here for education." And literally refused to let me drop a class. I also happened to be one of his classes, so he was taking it personal that I was trying to drop one. But yeah, it was a great experience, and he was a great advisor. Um, the other great teachers I had some great math teachers that were really funny. I had a young history teacher that started with me as a student teacher, and he was tough and gruff, but he had a face of about a 12-year-old. He was barely older than us um, in high school, so he tried to play it up, but he was a really funny guy. Um, and those teachers over the years really made me feel great when they were entertaining and made me laugh. And that laughter cemented itself to the things that we were learning. If you would like to share about a teacher, please text me at 570-486-9939 or give us a call at area code 215-253-3737 or simply pop a note into the chat box next to us at YouTube. Meanwhile, I'm going to tell you about the most special teacher of all, and that was my mom. My mom was a reading specialist. She taught elementary school, then later taught middle school science, and then eventually she got her master's degree in reading. And I admired that for a couple of reasons. First of all, it was always great to have a teacher at home, for better or worse, to help you with your homework. And eventually I got to advanced math, and at that point I was helping her. But but my mom was definitely a real support there, both at home. She spent 8 hours a day teaching, and came home and worked with my sisters and me in the evenings. But as a reading specialist, it she had a very interesting job because there were two types of kids in her class. They were all struggling with reading in some way, shape, or form. They were at least a full grade level behind to qualify for her class. And that meant one of two things. Either the child had a distinct cognitive problem and was struggling to read. Those were usually corrected within a year or so. My own son ended up having the same experience where he went from a kid that was a full grade level behind to a kid that was a full grade level ahead in about a year and a half. And the reading specialist really helped him. So I knew firsthand the value of that. The other kind of kids she had were the troublemakers, the kids that weren't getting the support they needed at home, the kids that had attitudes or attention deficit problems. Back then, we didn't know what ADD or ADHD was. They were just called brats. And when you had a whole bunch of, several brats in the room, then we knew that they had to be taught differently. But there wasn't good um, knowledge of how to address those problems back in the 70s and 80s. But my mom had to because these kids would get behind and they would get funneled into her remedial class. So she had to take kids that were you know bad actors, they were distracted, they were scattered, and she had to somehow corral them and get them to read so that they could have any hope of a future. I can't imagine the difference it would be if reading wasn't a part of my life. And I really appreciate what my mom did. And we've seen in America the literacy rates have simply plummeted. Virtually no kids are not capable of reading um, by the time they graduate high school. And yeah, some schools are better than others, but even in the worst schools, the vast majority of the kids are capable readers. That wasn't the case. It was not unusual when I was a kid to have older adults who never learned to read or hadn't practiced it since fourth or fifth grade, and now they're in their 70s and they can't remember how to read. Um, that's becoming rapidly a rare situation in America. The last thing I want to comment on tonight, and again, I want to encourage you to give me a shout out. I'd love for this show to be a little more interactive. So call, text, the numbers are at the top of the chat, along with a whole bunch of really funny little icons. But I want to wrap it up with one more thought for it. In America, every kid is entitled to an education, even children that weren't born here and whose parents came here illegally. That bothers some people, but the reality is that we have made the decision that all children, regardless of origins or situations, deserve the right to education in the US. That is such a radical privilege. I've been learning more and more about other cultures. I'm working with a client that works with a lot of refugees right now, and realize that there are millions and millions and billions of kids that aren't getting any kind of reasonable education. The flip side of that is that there are other countries that are really stepping it up and surpassing the US. Interesting statistic. Every 4 years, China graduates more people with 4 year college degrees than there are people in the US with 4 year college degrees at all. Every 4 years, their 1.7 billion people are graduating more people with bachelor's level degrees than we have educated at all in our lifetime. So if you say to me, well, China is cheaper labor, China is this, China is that, same thing with India. India now has over 1 billion people, and they are really focused heavily on education. So you say, why are we outsourcing our tech to India? I don't like it when I call Dell Computer and someone answers with an Indian accent. The reason is they have more people that are becoming well educated faster than we have here in the US. Right now, the United States has some of the best colleges in the world, and certainly between the US and Europe, the vast majority of the most respected colleges are here. That is going to change rapidly if we don't take care to keep college educating our children. Something needs to be done over the next decade to make sure that college is affordable, that we are learning, that we are keeping up the standards that made America a great place to live. And we did it because we had many of the best educated people in the world living here in America. That is going to change unless we do something to change our education system. So that's my rant for today. I want to thank you for listening. I hope you had a great teacher or half a dozen that made a big impact on your life. And I hope that inspiration will also inspire you to put education first in the US, because if you truly want America to be the greatest country in the world, it's only going to happen if we are a collection of the greatest minds in the world. And that can only happen by offering education to as many people as possible at every level. So I'm going to wrap up there. It's 23 minutes after the hour. Had a good time. I want to do a special shout out to my mom, one of the best educators that I've ever known. Yes, I'm biased. Shut up, it's my mom. I also want to shout out to Mr. Taylor, Mr. Shout, Mr. Milliken, Mrs. Hoyt, Doc C, Professor Smith, and a wide variety of other teachers that I know I'm forgetting. And then I also want to shout out to 2 teachers that my children have specifically told me that they love, and that's Miss Mackey at Shikellamy High School in Pennsylvania, and Mr. Booker at Priestley Elementary School in Northumberland, Pennsylvania. Kudos to them. Keep up the great work. Keep educating, keep making learning fun, and keep honing your craft, because you literally control the world and our future. Thank Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great night, and we'll talk to you on Monday. Have a good weekend. Bye bye.